So welcome to this session about MySQL HA, easy, right? I will talk about MySQL 8 InnoDB Cluster. So first of all, I want to know people in the audience a bit. So who is MySQL DBA or operator here? In this? Most of them, good. So are you interested in HA? Yeah, good. So who wants to give me an example what they are using for HA in MySQL? So Giuseppe? Everything? Somebody else want to say, oh, I'm using this stuff to make a HA? Yeah? DB cluster? Good. With what's in front of it? Are you using a proxy or IP floating? HA proxy in front of it, okay, good. So who is using something homemade, like scripts they do, or nobody? Okay, good. So save the date, open world, in October, San Francisco. This is the the most important slide of the session. So about me, my name is Frederic Descamps, speaking French usually. So I am on Twitter, Fred, I'm MySQL evangelist, I'm hacking MySQL for a long time. I'm living in Belgium. We're going to win the World Cup. Kenny's agree on that, right? And I have a blog post, a blog where it's lefred.be, where you can find a lot of information about MySQL HA and other MySQL stuff, right? So we have a vision to make this tool, right? And it is to have one product in MySQL for the high availability and the scaling feature, everything in all very easy to implement. Because when here I was asking, you are using a per-connector DB cluster, Giuseppe was using everything. So there is a lot of solution to do that. Some are easy, some are very complicated. Some people need to have tools because what's going on if you have master-slave solutions and multiple slave, when your master crash, you need to find which slave to promote, so which one is the most up-to-date, then use this one and make it becoming writable, if it was read-only, and then point all the other slave to this new master, the right position or the right GTID if you're using, and all this needs to be automated, right? And then point the application to that. So this is quite complicated, or it depends, it relies on different tools, external tools. So we want to do something in one single product that is very easy to use, right? With HA capability by default. Out of the box, everything is it's integrated and with extreme scale out and high performance. So here, with extreme scale out, this is the vision, right? So the first step we did for this product, it's the HA, high availability. So this is what we are, our first goal, and this is what we achieve. This is what I will talk to you now. But we want to go more than that. So if I tell you right scaling, so to scale out your writes, what's the answer? Sharding. Yeah. This was the session just before, sharding. This is the only way you can scale out your writes, is sharding. Other than that, it's not because you have in Percona server, extra DB cluster, or in Group Replication. It's not adding more master or adding more nodes that will make you write more, right? Because this is, if you write if your capacity is 100 writes on one node, the other nodes already write the same 100 nodes because the replication is almost synchronous, right? So it's the same. So this is, you can scale your reads, but you don't scale your writes with HA solution. The only way you can scale your writes is by using sharding, right? And in our vision, we want to integrate sharding also in the solution, but we are not yet there. So first of all, it's the HA. So one product all together, everything is tested together, it's packaged together. One client to orchestrate all that is the MySQL shell, where you can do everything. I will show you that after. We want to have something flexible and modern. For people who were here yesterday, we have SQL and NoSQL. If you were not, now MySQL can do also NoSQL. We are using protocol buffers, asynchronous API, and we want to make it very developer-friendly with all our connectors. If you use the latest one, all that it's included. And we want to support read and write scale out. So read scale out, we are already there. Write scale out, we are not yet there, right? So this is the architecture of the InnoDB cluster. So if you want to implement HA right now, you have your application with a connector. Always use the latest connector. So InnoDB cluster is available in 5.7 and in 8.0. So if you are using 8.0, if you are using 5.7 here for the MySQL, for the servers, you can use the router 8.0 and the MySQL connector 8.0.11 too. So you should even, it's recommended to use always the latest one. Even if you use 5.7 here, use 8 there, right? So this is what you have. The application, use the connectors. Connectors connect on the router. Most of the time, we recommend to use the router on the application server. So you don't need to make the router become a single point of failure, right? So if you want to avoid it to be a single point of failure, you need to also make a cluster of your router. If you don't want to deal with that, just put it on the application server, and your application connects locally, and this one will connect the traffic to the cluster, right? So usually I end by that, but I was thinking we are always in the hurry at the end of the sessions. The slides, you can see them. So I was thinking, okay, let's start with the demo, right? Shall we? Do you agree that we start with the demo? Okay, let's go with the demo. So I will sit, sorry. It will be easier for me. I will just say... No, but you need to do that. No, I was thinking to Kenny to do it, or you, right? I will just put back this, because if not, you will see him in the background all the time. It's quite boring. So, plop, 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 plop. Can you read it? Yes? Yes. No, it's a dolphin. Okay, so I want to show you that with MySQL 8, you can do the shell from your machine, your laptop, or whatever, and you can set it up on virtual machine in the cloud or on physical machines somewhere without having to modify anything in the configuration files by yourself. All that is done by the shell. So I will show you. Oh, I want to show you another thing that I was forgetting to show you. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Do you see that too? Bloop, 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 bloop. Okay, let's try to make it here. No. Okay. So here we have the 3 machines. So I have 3 machines, MySQL 8.0.11, MySQL 1, MySQL 2, MySQL 3, right? And they are up and running. And this is basic machine. I haven't done anything. Just install the machine and add the user, right? That's like you could do in the cloud, on any cloud, Oracle Cloud, or whatever cloud you want to use. This is possible to do. You do that. So then I will connect with my shell on one of the machine, right? So here I start the shell, and I will connect on one of them. Could be MySQL 1, MySQL 2, or MySQL 3. So I am connected on one of the machine, right? And you can see I'm 33060, which is the X protocol and SSL, and I'm connected on MySQL 1. As you see, if you were not there yesterday, I am in JavaScript mode. So in the shell, you can be in SQL mode, Python mode, or JavaScript. It's easy. You just do this. You see, I go from one to another one, right? So I am back in JavaScript. And so now, this is not mandatory if you want to do it, but I want to show you. So it takes 3 minutes to set up the cluster, but I want to explain you what I'm doing. So what we can do, so the DBA is the admin API we have created to administrate a server from the shell. You can have all the commands if you do DBA help. It explains you all you can do. And the first command we have added to the admin API is the administration of the cluster. Maybe it won't end there. Maybe you will be able to orchestrate asynchronous replication or any other stuff. But currently, it's the cluster that we can orchestrate. So I will do check instance configuration. Like I told you, I have just installed the machine. maybe I need some settings that are needed to make the server compatible with the group replication and the cluster. So cluster admin, connect to one of them, could be 1, 2, or 3. I will connect to the 1. Oh, wrong password. So it checks the configuration and it says, oh, there is some errors, right? GTID mode, it's off and should be to on. And for GTID consistency, it's off, should be to on. And binlog checksum, it's CRC32 and should be to none, right? Because the group replication itself has already some checksums, so we don't need to have 2 checksums. And for some changes, it says you need to restart the MySQL server, right? So let's apply that. As you can see, I don't do anything on the configuration files. I don't modify them, don't touch them. So I will do here. So configure instance, give which instance I want to configure. And if I do that, it will change the configuration files, but I have to restart the machine by myself, maybe on the cloud or whatever. Or I can say, because I'm using MySQL 8, I can say here, oops, sorry. Boop, boop, boop. Restart true. It's an option. Well, if you do help. Oh, sorry. Where is the? So it's just an option. Restart. It's true. It's written true. Let's see if I can make it bigger. Or. Is that topology aware? What do you mean by topology aware?
When you check the option, for example, if it's asynchronous replication or group replication, it could be different settings.
Yeah, currently it's only group replication. Right now, is what I said. The admin API just check group replication, but in the future it could be topology aware because I will show you after when I show the status of the cluster that it has topology settings, but not prepared, but not yet there. So I will tell him, please configure instance, give me the answer, the password. As I am in interactive mode, it asks me, do you really want to do that? If I am using batch mode, like if you want to add that, because you can use this in configuration management, the shell, you can make calls to it. It won't ask you to verify it. So I said, okay, please do it. And check here the design, the small screen here. So it will configure the instance, and it says it's restarted. You see the machine is off now, because it's restarting the machine. So I didn't connect to the machine to say on the operating system, stop it or whatever. No, just say, please do it, and it restarts it. And I will do the same now for MySQL 3 and 2, without even checking if the configuration. Just say, please do it. If he has nothing to do, he won't do it. But as they are just fresh machine, it's exactly the same to do. It will restart MySQL 2 go away, and then I will do the same with MySQL 3. So now the machines are ready when they are where they come back. They are ready to be added to a cluster, right? Because all the configuration is okay. So now we need to wait them to come back. Sorry, it's VMs on my machine. It takes time. Let's see. Usually it's the third one that comes up, the first one. Even if it's the last one I kill, you see, it's already there. So I will use that one. So I will connect. So I'm connected to MySQL 3 now. And I will create an object that I will call it cluster. And I will DBA create cluster DataOps, okay? I have to give a name. So I give a name, create cluster. It checks the configuration again. You see now the machine, it's part of the group. It's part of the cluster. Of course, if I do cluster status, you see, okay, this is what we have. You see the topology we're talking, it's here. but it's a single machine, right? It's online, it's in read-write mode, it's not tolerant to any failure. Of course, if this machine crash, I have no cluster anymore, right? And this is the information. So the cluster, it's already there. So now what we need to do is to add another one. So we'll do cluster, cluster, add instance, and my instance is cluster admin at MySQL. I can do 2 or 3. And so it checks again. Then here, when he's here, he's just doing the recovery mode. It means that if in meanwhile this machine had some data, it will first provision the machine with the data is missing and then add it there. So now if we check the status again, we see they are all online. One is read-write, MySQL 3. One is read-only, MySQL 2, because it's HA. So, and I will go in details after on why is this. But here it's not tolerant to any failure. So we have 2 machines. If one crash, we don't have cluster anymore. Like I'm not able to write anymore. Do you understand why? Who doesn't get it? Don't be shy. I can explain why. It's just because you don't have quorum. Quorum is more than 50%. So if this machine crash, this one won't become the leader because he says, oh, I am one of two. One of two is only 50%. It's not more than 50. So what happens? Is my friend done? Or is it me that has no network to the other one and I don't see it? So to avoid split brain situation, we prefer to, we care about the data, right? So we prefer then to stop and say, oh, here something is wrong. Somebody, a human, needs to come and say, oh, take the lead because the other one is done. And this is why we always say you need to have 3 nodes, 5 nodes, 7 nodes, because then you don't have this situation. So now I will add the third one. Oh yeah, it says the third one is already in. So it's the first one. So you will see it will come here, say, do you have some data for me? And then it's part of the cluster. Yes?
What is the SST state transformation?
There is none. So currently, there is no SST. The machine are fresh machines, so there is no data. If there is some data, depending, it goes from the binary log. Of course, you won't have the binary logs for, let's say, 1 year, or something like that. So you need to use a backup, like asynchronous replication, exactly the same as asynchronous replication.
But it's not yet managed by the...
No. You need to take a backup yourself and provision your machine yourself, and then start it. And then the shell will find which position it is. It can check that. You can, there is a command to say, check this machine, the GTID information about this machine, and if it's able to join the cluster or not. That you can check it. It can do the check, but it doesn't do the backup for you. Because people, if you're enterprise or not enterprise, you have backup solution, different backup solution. But we know about this provisioning when you don't have the binary logs or when it's too large. We know about the issue and we know about the problem, right? Yes.
You created a namespace, a cluster name called DataOps. Right?
Yes.
What's the importance of the name?
So the name is just because we have currently doesn't make much importance, right? But in the future, you could have a router, for example, could point you to different clusters. So there, he has to know which one to go because there is metadata. So the metadata is on the cluster itself. And the metadata, it belongs to the cluster name. So it has to be unique for the cluster you want. That's the only reason right now.
There is some performance schema table on each instance where I would find the cluster name.
You have that, but you have also InnoDB metadata, InnoDB cluster metadata data schema itself, a different one with that the router use to know where, what. Because usually here, there is group replication behind. And there is, you need to create users, you need to create grants. All that shell does it for you. So you see now we have a cluster, it took 5 minutes to make it, right? And so if I check here, I don't know if I can come here. You see now that we have 3 nodes, we can tolerate 1 failure. If 1 node crash, another one will be elected. I will show you that. So which the master? It's MySQL blah 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 3, right? So what? No, not yet. But I will show you that in 1 minute. Blah blah blah. First, I will just do. So I will crash the leader, right? The writer node here. Oh, oh, sorry. So I will kill it. You see it's off, right? And this one just say, oh, we are missing our leader. They are making consensus and they elect one. And you see now the leader is MySQL 1. So now the writer, so the router will send everything back here. Of course, this systemd restarted the node comes back, say, oh, guys, I was out, this is my position, give me the information I'm missing, and joins the cluster again. Yeah, you know everything that you can have, everything. So we have there is performance schema tables, there is variables where you can find all that information. Sorry? No, it has been elected. You can know which one is the primary, and because they could also be in all in writer. You can see are they in a primary partition or not. All that information is available. So if you want more information, I can talk to you later, or we can see. But on my blog, you can find all that information also, right? Yes.
What was this demo, that GUI tool?
So it's the question I always get about this nice GUI tool, right? This GUI tool is just an SC, so a sales consultant from our team that I was invited to Brussels to talk about document store, and one guy was doing this demo, not the same, but was using the tool. And I said, oh, what's this tool? It's nice to show it to people. And he said, yeah, it's my boss who made it. It's a Java tool made by a guy, by Mario Beck. So great, let's say, congratulations, Mario. I told him he should make a company just for this tool. But that's it. It's just a tool to show that. It's not a monitoring tool. It's not made for production yet, I guess. It's just a small tool to show you what's going on.
It's not managing it.
No, it's just a small tool to show what people... But a lot of people likes it. So I told Mario there is a business here with this tool. So yeah. So as you can see, we made it in 5 minutes, right? Because 5 minutes because I was explaining you. So I really like this, right? This is Marco. Marco over there. That's him, I'm sure. Really? No? It's too easy. I agree. This is very easy. Yeah. Okay. Everybody. So now I will talk you about what we have just seen, right? So this is what we have seen. We have the router we haven't seen. So we have a router that connects to it, and I will talk about just a bit later about it. We have the shell. So the shell is everything where I type the commands, and all the server have a plugin, and the plugin is Group Replication. In fact, Group Replication is the heart of the solution, right? This is where all the magic happens. So what is this Group Replication? So it's a plugin for MySQL that is made by MySQL and that is packaged with MySQL. So when you install MySQL 5.7 after 16, or if you are using 8.0, you have this plugin already installed on your machine. So everybody has that. This doesn't replace asynchronous replication. This is yet another replication way. So, and you can mix them. So you can mix group replication with semi-sync replication or asynchronous replication. A group can be a slave. A group can be a master. You can mix all that. There is no problem. And it can be multi-source or whatever. You can do whatever you want. So the group replication is an implementation of replicate database state machine theory, which is exactly the same theory, but another implementation of what you are using. So when you say you are using Galera stuff, this is the same theory that is implemented, but in a different way. So you can write on all the groups, but as you have seen earlier, This is not what we give you by default, and I will come back to that very soon, why we do that. And you have conflict detection and resolution. What do I mean by conflict detection and resolution? So when you use asynchronous replication, right, when there is an issue, like primary key issue, what happens? Replication breaks, and you need to fix it somehow. Some people ignore the error, which I don't recommend you at all, but people does that. Or you need to fix why do I have this issue, why somebody wrote on the slave, or why this key was there and not on the master, what's going on. Here, with group replication is not the case. With group replication, when there is a conflict, it will see the conflict, and it will take a decision to resolve the conflict. And the decision, it's easy, is the first one who have committed to the group will succeed, right? So, and this is the only resolution we have, and it's exactly the same as the other implementation. You can have distributed recovery. So this is what we have seen earlier when the node 3 went out. When he came back, he asked, oh, guys, am I missing some transaction? And he will ask to the other members to get to recover. And something very important, and this is something what makes group replication different than the other solution, is that it's supported on all MySQL platform. So where MySQL is supported, group replication is supported too. So it's on Linux, on Windows, Solaris, OS 6, and FreeBSD, and you can mix. So you can have 2 members in Linux and 1 in Windows, for example, if you don't want to have all the same machines or all the same operating system in your machine. It is possible. Some people, for security reasons, they want that. They don't want to have all the same machine, all the same OS on all the same machine they are using, right? So this is possible. So what does it mean for you users? Is that you don't need to make failover manually, because people are still doing it sometime, or to use some complicated script to make this failover happening. This is not needed. The failover, you saw it in Mario's picture that it's happening automatically. So you have fault tolerance, depending on the amount of nodes you have and the topology you have. You can update everywhere. This is not what I showed you, but it's possible. And I will come back on that in a few slides. You have crash, reconnect. You saw what happened earlier. This is work. So, and this is what very important. You need to have an HA for MySQL service very easily. And you saw it was very easy to set up, right? It took 5 minutes because I was talking to you at the same time and showing. But me alone, it takes 3 minutes to do it, right? Just start the machine and then make the configuration and start the cluster, and it's done. So now about the default. I told you right now that you can write on every node. It's possible. And the application, the plugin was designed for that. But we realized that and the default was you could write everywhere the first time we released it, but then we changed the default because for every distributed system, there is some limitations, right? And sometimes people doesn't know the workload they have. And to protect these users, we told them, okay, you write on one node, because the goal is to have HA, is not to write scale out. You still have HA, but you write only on one node because you don't really know your workload. You remember before, 3 slides before, I told you we have detection and resolution, right? And the resolution is the first to commit. So let's imagine we have a cluster of 3 members, and these 3 nodes, you can write on all of 3 of them, right? You write, so you start a transaction on the first one, and you modify 1 million records. You run this transaction. Takes time to do. It loads the data because maybe they are not in the buffer pool, whatever. It takes time. At the same time, on MySQL 2, you modify 1 record, but this record is part of the 1 million ones. This one takes it's very short time. It commits, send to the group, say, hey guys, this is my commit that I have done. Please do it. When it goes to MySQL 3 that was doing nothing, MySQL 3 says, okay, I will commit that. Then it goes to MySQL 1. MySQL 1 say, oh, there is a conflict here. But this one was committed first, the small one, because the other one is still processing, so it was not yet committed to the group. And in InnoDB, you have priority transaction that we have enabled in 5.7.6, so before group replication, but we are preparing the work. that means that every transaction that are part of the group has the highest priority. If a transaction comes from the group, it has the highest priority. So what happens? The 1 million records transaction will roll back because it's the small one that needs to pass. And this is why we use this single primary mode because if people are doing all this kind of stuff every time, let's say you have a cron job that modify every hour this small row, and your big transaction takes 1 hour, you always get it rollback every time. Every time it's rollback because of this. To avoid that, single primary mode. Now, we don't support foreign keys on cascade. We are planning to work on that, but currently we don't support this because InnoDB is not able to externalize which keys will be modified in advance by the cascading stuff, right? So to avoid that, so we cannot certify them that it will work, that nobody modifies these keys on another node. If you have on cascade foreign keys, you should always use single primary mode. And the latest reason is that if you use hotspot records, that record that you modify everywhere, every time, the same one, you will have rollbacks happening. So some transaction will always say will fail on some nodes, and your application will say fail, fail, fail. So it's bad. So if you have this kind of workload, then it's bad idea, or this kind of schema, it's bad idea to use multi-writers, right? If you want to know your workload, on my blog, there is one post telling about you can use performance schema, how to use it to find all this workload you are doing. So if you don't know it, how to know it, I explain it. Yes?
There's another reason that it's the natural consistency cluster. So the reads are not saying that.
No, they are. Because there is this queue, right? So when we say
Sorry, can
group,
you repeat the question?
yes, sorry. So he said that the other reason is that the reads are not serialized, and so inconsistency issue could happen, right? They are serialized at a certain point by the XCOM. XCOM is the protocol that we use, GCS, Group Communication System, that will serialize your GTID when you commit. So everybody needs to. So even the machine that writes needs to consume it, right?
Yeah, but that's a write. I'm talking about reads.
Yeah, but this is not about multi-writers. It doesn't.
If you write everywhere, you read also everywhere.
Yeah.
Then you get some inconsistency system. You lose the isolation, the serialized isolation.
Yes, but serialize is not supported in this kind of systems.
Yes, that's what I call eventual inconsistency.
Yes.
You cannot just read with dogs.
I will come back later on that, but this doesn't. It's a problem like application problem, but it's not a problem about why it won't work, right? Or why you will have big issues. Yeah, if you need that, but there is some. I will show you how you can do that. There is possibility to do that. So I will explain you that too, right? But serializable, it's not one of the, because if you do that, it's not that you need to write only on one node and read to the other one. You need to write and read on one node only. So it's not about only let's say primary single primary modes, right? You need to read and write only on the same node if you want to achieve this isolation, right? But this is not the case here. So sorry for the. I don't have it's strange. On my machine, it's good. So this is why you can see the mode, right? There is information about which mode you are running. So this is just what I told you with the mechanism of to see which one are primary and secondary. So the secondary are the read-only, primary is the read-write. But you can have, if you don't have these issues, you can write everywhere. So the router now. The router, it's a middleware, a very lightweight process that makes the routing, and he knows the status, he knows what are the machines, and it will send the data. But this is a TCP level 4 router, so it means that it doesn't know about the MySQL protocol. It just knows about TCP connections and say, oh, somebody comes to that port, and it has one port to write and one port to read. So it's your application that needs to say, oh, if I want to write, I need to send to this port. If I want to read, I need to send to this port, for example. And it says, oh, all the connection coming for this port, I will send them to this node. If it comes from the right port, it sends to the primary. And if the primary change, it will send to another primary. So this is what it does. Not more than that. So it doesn't know about what are the queries, that there is no way. There is something very nice with the router is that you don't need to configure it because like I was saying earlier to Shlomi, we have this information, metadata information in the cluster and you can say bootstrap. So get your information from the cluster and configure yourself, passwords, everything, all that can be done bootstrapping. You just need to have one account to connect to the cluster. Right? Now, if this is not what you are looking for, because you say, okay, it works, but I want to know more, I want to do a regular expression to split reads and writes by my not by in my application and stuff like that. We are also working with Proxy SQL, where Proxy SQL has by default native support for group replication. So it doesn't call an external script or something like that. He knows how to monitor it. He knows how to send the data. And you can say, okay, I want to send my reads to these machines or my writes to these machines. But if they are, let's say, applying behind some transaction, I don't want to send data there. You can do all that kind of stuff, right, in Proxy SQL. Also, Proxy SQL 2.0 implemented something very nice for group replication. To, for example, the problem you have, he knows which transaction are being committed where. So when you say, I want these reads to be consistent, he can find, let's say you have 1,000 of servers, some groups, some slaves, whatever. It will be able to say, okay, you want this read to be consistent, I will send it there because it has the data. It's possible, but you need to use Proxy SQL 2.0. It does that, and it works also only on MySQL. So if you are using MySQL and the Percona server, but it doesn't work on MariaDB because they don't implement every writes, we get the GTID. So it uses this stuff. Then we have the shell. Not much to say about it. It's JavaScript, Python, and SQL. You can do a lot of stuff with the shell. I showed yesterday, if you were here, CRUD operation also to do NoSQL. And we have the admin interface, so you can do both interactive and batch operation. So there is some example on my GitHub about how to write Puppet recipes, Puppet modules using the shell. So, which I like it, for example, because, for example, with the, you saw, I didn't modify any configuration files. So, and you can do the same with Puppet. So it means, because usually now, if you want to change a value, maybe you don't need to restart. Maybe you need to restart the server. Maybe you don't know it, because it depends on the version you have. You can say via the shell, please change this variable, and if it doesn't need to restart, it won't restart. If it needs to restart, it will restart. But you don't subscribe the MyCNF to the restart service, so you can avoid all that part from the modules. And so, for example, if you change the buffer pool size, that doesn't need to restart anymore. You don't restart your server. If you do that, if you change the buffer pool size in MyCNF, most of the MySQL modules for Puppet or Chef that are available now will restart because there is a subscribing of the configuration. Configuration has changed, I restart MySQL. Maybe it's not needed. With the shell, you won't do that. So it's much more powerful for that. You have document, relational tables, CRUD operation. You can do a lot of stuff, and it has standard and X protocol, right? So this is what I showed you earlier. Set persist and restart at MySQL 8 or 11. So it means we can change configuration and restart the server from the shell or from the MySQL client without any need to modify configuration files. So don't forget, this is an HA solution, right? Yes?
When it's a restart, is it just restarting the storage engine or just...
No, it restarts the server. The server restarts by itself. So thank you. I don't know if you have, I think I'm on time, right? 1 minute on time. So you're the next one? You see, I don't do like you, huh? So thank you very much. If you like it, test it. Please share your love to MySQL on the social media. Just one thing, slides will be available, and in the slides, you will have a lot of more information about how that stuff works, technical information, so it's possible. But here the time was short, I could not explain everything. So thank you very much.